Here to discuss how long will the good times last, selling in an increasingly digital marketplace, is Patrick McMullen, Vice President with Max Digital. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our workshop today. My name is Patrick McMullen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Innovation for a company called Max Digital. At Max Digital, we have a ton of clients that are in the automotive space. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you some of the things that we work with our clients on, and then things that we learn from other clients in the automotive space. And it's all about how long will the good times last? What does that mean? Well, we're selling in an ever-increasing digital marketplace. So, as we all know, today's average consumer has changed from the way they were 10 years ago. We fundamentally changed the way that we price our inventory as an industry, but we haven't changed the way that we sell to the clients or to customers. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how you can overcome that and build quality value and prove with pricing proof points that you have a fair price to overcome any objections that the customer may have. And ultimately, it's all about making money and gross and how we can hold more gross in our asking price, and from there, make more money in turn. So let's go ahead and get started. So the last couple of years have been pretty good in automotive. New car sales have been up, used car sales are up, gas prices have remained low. Last year was a record year for many OEMs when it comes to certified pre-owned. But if you subscribe to any of the online publications or you get any of the magazines that come to the dealerships, Automotive News, Auto Remarketing, NADA, there's some common themes that we see out there. And a couple of them are, there's this bubble that's getting ready to come as far as inventory levels. Disruption. This is an industry that's ripe for disruption. And then that customer, how that customer has changed. There's a lot of articles out there. I encourage you to go online and look at it. But we're going to talk about that in greater detail. So the first one that we see, those three, we really don't see it as, just storm clouds. We see it really as a perfect storm that's hitting our industry. So let's talk about the first one, and that is supply. So if we look at the graph here, prior to 2008, the inventory levels that were readily available to dealers from 0 to 5 years old were somewhere north of 85 million. So vehicles, let me repeat that, vehicles that were 0 to 5 years old, readily available to us, either in circulation, about 85 million. And then 2008 happened. And what happened in 2008? The downturn. And did we sell more new cars or less new cars after 2008? We sold a lot less cars, a lot less new cars. So our supply, where we get our used cars from, trade-ins, lease returns, kind of shortened up. You can see on the graph, all the way down to 2012, to 62 million. 62 million, almost a 20 million swing in readily available inventory that was at our fingertips. And if anybody on watching this or sitting out here has bought cars during that time frame, you know that it was really hard to get quality inventory. So if we look at as supply dropped, look what happened to our gross profits. They rose. So much so that in 2015, the NADA average for front-end gross only was $2,372, almost $2,400 in front-end gross profit. And that's not including back-end. So dealers that are out there, I want you to put, what is your front-end gross profit today? Put that number in your head, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute. We're going to talk about how that's under pressure and what we can do to hold some of that. But if we look at what the experts are saying as far as where supply is going, it's projected that by 2019, the supply will be back up to about 89 million units. So, as people that have lived through this, do we feel, and as intelligent people, do we feel that our gross profits are going to continue to climb, or do we feel like they might level out? So think of that number that I just asked you to put in your head. Whatever your front-end gross profit right now is. It may be higher than the NADA average. It may be less. That's why they call it an average, right? But if you look at where do we think it may go, we don't know. But if it goes back to 2008 levels, or pre-08 levels down to $1,600, $1,700, that's almost a $600 swing. So I want you to take that number that you had in your head, subtract $600, and if you don't like that, cut that number in half, subtract $300. The point is, we can't keep steadily climbing as supply is rising. So we're going to talk about it a little bit later on our internet price. What do we do to hold that price? The second thing is disruption. So I'm going to ask a question. When was the last time you went to Blockbuster on a weekend to rent a movie with your spouse or your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever it may be? You don't anymore, right? And why don't we do that anymore? Because, first of all, they're out of business, but what put them out of business? There was a really big disruptor that came into that particular inventory, or that particular industry, and that was Netflix and online streaming. Now you watch movies from the comfort of your home. You sit on your couch, you press a button, Netflix pops up with all their shows, all their movies, Amazon, DirecTV, whatever the case may be, streaming online. So that killed that industry. Music. How do we buy music today? We don't go to a record store anymore. We go on our phone and we download the music, or we use some sort of streaming technology, whether it be Amazon Music or Spotify or Pandora. There's 600 million online subscribers of digital music. It's huge. Retail has been really affected. Look at what Amazon has done to the retail sector. So in the retail sector, just 2 weeks ago, The Limited has said that they're shutting down all their brick and mortars. They're going online only. Macy's just shut down a bunch of stores. And what's that driving factor behind that? It's Amazon. You can sit on your couch today, pull out your phone, order whatever you want, and it shows up tomorrow. But if we look at automotive, and we look at the space that we're in, there hasn't been a real disruptor that's come in and flipped the industry on its head. Now, you could say CarMax years ago came in and really kind of put a little jab into the used car operations, but it hasn't flipped everything on its head, though. But if we look at some of the companies that are out there today that are trying to do this, Carvana, Vroom, BP, they put a little bit of a hold there as they're merging with Fair.com. But as I travel the country and I talk to our dealers and do workshops, I've brought these companies up in the past, and it seems to kind of, just go over the top of their head. But what I realized was they didn't really see the effect of it. And if we look at the effect of this, all these companies have been around for 4 years. Carvana just received a new round of $160 million. They've raised almost $700 million in funding so far. Vroom, $168 million. And if we look at all that money combined, that's almost $2.2 billion that these three companies have raised in capital. Now, who's investing in these companies? Wall Street, VC companies, Silicon Valley. And why are they doing that? Because they see that a major industry that's out there has a need. And consumers are asking for a different way to be sold. Consumers are asking for a different way to purchase vehicles. So they're hoping that they can come in and flip our industry on its head. So what do we need to do as dealers to make sure that doesn't happen? We go back to the Netflix example for a second. We talked about Blockbuster and Netflix. Blockbuster actually had an opportunity to buy Netflix early on. They had an opportunity to buy it for $50 million, and they passed. It wasn't something they wanted to invest in. Netflix today is worth almost $33 billion. So I bet you every single Blockbuster employee, every time they hear, on demand or streaming or stuff like that, they're probably cringing, right? So they could have had this for pennies on the dollar for what it's worth today. The last one is the customer. So if we look back, as little as 8, 9, 10 years ago, the average consumer, they would go to 5 or 6 different dealerships. They'd show up to the lot, and they'd get out of the car, and they'd kick tires, is what the slang term is. They'd kick tires. They'd go from dealership to dealership. Well, now they don't do that anymore because they don't have to. So now they go online, and they literally click tires, right? So it used to be that our competition was a quarter mile from us down the road. Now our competition is a quarter inch from us online, whether it be AutoTrader or Cars.com or any other third-party site that's out there. Our competition's right there. So the consumer today has more information readily available to them to make better decisions. not only on the vehicle that they're going to purchase, but the dealership that they want to do business with. So I think it's fair to say everybody would agree that the majority of customers, 90% plus, all start their used car search online. I think it's also fair to say that that customer spends a lot of time doing research. And I think it's lastly fair to say when they show up to our dealership, after doing all that research, spending all that time, and they show up and they pick your dealership out of the hundreds of dealerships in your marketplace, and they pick your car out of the thousands of cars that they've seen, when they show up, they know just a little bit more about the car they're coming to buy than the salesperson does that's trying to sell it to them. So when they get there, the salesperson's at a disadvantage. So we're going to talk today about how do we level that playing field? What are some of the things that we can do? What is some of the evidence that we can provide to help the salesperson be able to overcome that? And the last number on here on this slide, showrooming. There was a study, there was a study done last year. It said 62% of people in the store are showrooming. Well, what does showrooming mean? Well, showrooming means as I'm sitting there, I'm pulling out my phone and I'm still searching to see if I'm getting a good deal. I'm still shopping. We've all probably done this before. Anybody ever go to Best Buy and look at a TV? You see the TV hanging on the wall. You're like, I really like this TV. And what do? You grab your phone, you go onto Amazon or you go into Google, and you see if you can get it somewhere cheaper, right? And they'll deliver it the next day, 2 days later, and you save $20 and you feel great. Customers are doing the same thing. They know about the car. They know that it's a good price. They know what the price is because we have a price online, but when they show up, they still don't trust us. So they're seeing if they can get a deal last minute. 75% of consumers in general say they'd like to take the entire car buying process online. And I think that's mainly pushed by millennials who don't want to talk to car dealers at all. They want to do everything through text or email, things like that. Now to shift gears just for a second, I want to talk about a paradox that we're facing. So as an industry, I said this earlier, we fundamentally have changed the way that we price our inventory, but we haven't fundamentally changed the way that we sell our inventory. So put it this way. I've been with my company for 10 years. I remember when dealers, they wouldn't even put prices online. They wouldn't put photos. They would put call for price. They didn't want to put their price out there because they didn't want the customer going somewhere else. Now, that doesn't happen anymore. If you do that, you're not going to get a phone call or any traffic. And companies like First Look and vAuto and American Auto Exchange and Inventory Plus and Red Bumper and all these inventory management suites that are out there, they've come and they all have pricing tools. So as an industry, we've completely bought into this concept of market-based pricing. And what does that mean? Well, I have a car, I bring it in day one, I go into my pricing tool, I look out and I look in 100 miles, 150 miles, 200-mile radius, whatever the case may be, and I look to find the other cars like mine, and then I price them accordingly. So we're all competing before we even put our cars online. Whereas back in the day, we'd have a car maybe priced at $19,980 as the slide shows, but we may have only owned it for $14,000, and we bumped it up and we waited for that customer to show up, then we negotiated. Now that we've all bought into market-based pricing, our first price that we put forward, the majority of the time should be our best foot forward, right? It should be our best price to get that customer because we're competing against everybody else online. The problem though is when that customer shows up, they've done all that research. They've looked. They've spent 12 hours online throughout a couple months. They know about that car. And when they show up, they know more about the car than the salesperson does. So what do we do to close the deal? Well, we use the same old sales plays, right? So we've fundamentally changed the way that we price, but we haven't changed the way that we sell. And what I mean by that is customers are still expecting a discount because they don't trust us. And as salespeople, they negotiate to close the deal. So they run back to the manager and they still try to negotiate back and forth. So we call that the double discount. So the first discount is the way you priced your car online, because you priced it aggressively to drive traffic. That second discount is when you come into my dealership and we go back and forth and I drop the car another $1,000, $1,500. So we're going to talk today about how do we do this? How do we stop that drop? How do we stop the drop in order to hold more of our grosses? We have some clients that that buy into this and on average have a $160, $180 drop throughout the course of last year. They're not a one-price store either, but they're negotiating in hundreds, not thousands. So there's a better way. Now let's discuss this. Like, how do we overcome this? So the first thing you got to do is you got to crack the code. So what does that mean? We got to define what this acronym code means. Consumer optimized digital it's a mouthful. Consumer optimized digital execution. So it's a big word, right? Let's break that down in simple terms. As dealers, we have to have a deep understanding of today's car buyers and how they research, shop, and ultimately what makes them decide to purchase a vehicle. So let's talk about that for a second. We got to understand how they search first and foremost, and then we got to understand what the triggers are that make them buy. So first, search. We've done some proprietary research in our R&D lab back in Chicago, and what we found, it didn't shock me when I first saw this, and it was like, how do customers actually start their used car search? And it's very simple. They have 5 things in mind when they start that: year, make, model, color, mileage, and price. Pretty simple, right? The year. Well, I don't want something that's really old. I want something maybe 2 or 3 years old, so that's what I'm looking at. The make, model. I like SUVs, so I don't want a really big SUV, maybe a mid-size SUV, so I'm kind of honing into my sweet spot. Color. I only drive black cars. My wife only drives white cars. I don't know why. I just like black cars, so I drive them. Mileage. I want something that doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, because that's what consumers think of when they see high mileage, right? So, you know, if I'm buying a 3-year-old car, anything under 40,000 miles, I'll be okay with. 70,000 miles, I'm not touching. And then price. That's what it ultimately comes down to. What can I afford? What's it going to cost out of my pocket every single month to drive that car? So those are the ways that we search. Those are the ways that we kind of go through our competitive set of vehicles that we're interested in, and then we end up going to the dealership. But what makes us buy? And that's completely different. They don't buy on those 5 factors. They buy on these 5 factors. Sales 101. You got to get somebody excited about what they're going to buy. So you got to build excitement. You got to build trust. You got to build that confidence. You got to show value or perceived value. And then you have to use evidence to show that that customer is getting a fair price. So all too often we separate these 2 things, but they really shouldn't be, because one is a logical approach to car buying and the other is an emotional approach to car buying. So we really need to bring these 2 together. So they can't be separated. So let's talk about that a little more. So excitement, trust, confidence, fair price, perceived value. What are some of the things that we can do as dealers and salespeople to build excitement? Well, what gets somebody excited about a car? Might be different for every single person, but I do know that packages on a car are pretty exciting. If I come into the dealership and I don't know what a cold weather, tech package, or sport package is, but I'm educated by the salesperson, they tell me what that is, I'm going to get pretty excited about that, because those are attributes of the car that I didn't know it had. And I'm like, okay, wow, this car has more than I thought it has. Trust. How do we build trust? Gallup did a poll last year. 91%, it was called the Trust and Professions poll. According to Gallup, 91% of consumers don't trust car salespeople. So how do we overcome that? Well, how do we build trust? So in this particular car, for example, show them the vehicle history report, whether it's Carfax or AutoCheck, whatever it may be. Show them that. Show them that they're not buying a lemon. We'll talk about that in a minute. Expert reviews and awards. So confidence. How do we build confidence? Show them what other third parties are saying. Not what you're saying as a salesperson, because remember, they don't trust us. Show evidence from third party places, what they're saying about the cars. Expert reviews and awards. And then fair price. You got to use pricing proof points. So whether it's Kelley Blue Book, NADA, Edmunds, whatever's out there, show that to the customer, because you better believe they've already gone online and they've already looked. But they're still going to try to get that discount, because that's the way that they're ingrained and that's the way that we're still selling. So use that as part of your process. This is hot off the presses. We've been conducting a survey over the last 3 weeks. And what we found, we're asking dealers and general managers and used car managers, why do they think people buy cars from them, right? And what we found was it fell into two camps. They bought either based on quality and value at a fair price, or that customer bought because it was the lowest price online. They resorted the search, went to the lowest, found the car that they wanted, and that was it. So what percentage do you think bought on quality and value versus price alone? So if you said 80% or 79%, you're 100% right. So let's round up one, round down one. So let's use the 80-20 rule. So 80% of consumers, this is the way they want to purchase a car. They're okay with you making a little bit of money. They just don't want to feel like they're getting ripped off. So they're okay with paying a little bit more for perceived quality and value. So that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of our time. How do we communicate and how do we sell to the 80% of people that that's the way they want to buy cars versus the 20% that just are strictly price alone? Now, if you want to be that dealer, that's totally fine. Just go into your pricing tool, be number one in your marketplace on your rank, and sit back and wait for them to come. But you're giving up gross, right? So let's talk about those 80%. So what's included in getting it right? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to acquire right. And how do we acquire inventory? Either at our dealership through the appraisal lane or at the auction, right? So you got to acquire the right inventory for your lot, for your market, but you also have to acquire it at the right price. So if you're using a pricing tool, hopefully that pricing tool comes with a trade appraisal tool. And some of the things that you need to look at are, what sets that car apart? There's nothing magical about appraising. There's two routes that a car can take. Car comes in from trade. It's either going to be a wholesale car that I don't want to sell, or it's going to be a retail car, right? So if it's a wholesale car, go straight to your books, figure out what your exit strategy is, and move on. If it's a retail piece, when I worked for CarMax years ago, over a decade ago, we were doing this back then. We would look at not what is the exit strategy from a wholesale mentality on a retail piece, but what can I sell this car for today? What is this car worth in my market? So I still see dealers, they have a retail piece that they're going to put on the front line, and all they care about is what NADA wholesale values are, or what Black Book wholesale values are. It doesn't matter. That's a loser's mentality. That's the mentality that 90 days from now I didn't sell that car. What's my break-even strategy? We need to look at what does it take to send that car home in somebody's driveway. If I appraised a car this morning, bought it from the customer, and put it online this afternoon, what's it going to take to send that car home with somebody tomorrow? So we need to look at it from a retail-first mentality and then back up into our number. So you look at what can I sell it for? What type of profit margin do I want to make? That has a lot to do with what kind of recon the car needs, and then figure out what your price is. And then for sanity check, if you're relying on the books, just check the books to make sure. Pricing. There's a lot of different philosophies on pricing philosophy, whether you should start out at 96% of the market or 102% of the market. I don't think there's a silver button or an easy button that you push that automatically prices your cars, because we're talking used cars. We're talking pre-owned inventory. And the difference between pre-owned inventory and new car inventories are commodities. A Honda Accord EXL with navigation at dealer A, that's brand new, same color, same everything, is the same exact car at dealer B. It's all about price at that point. It's all about trade-in and price. Used cars, though, I could have a 2014 Honda Accord EXL on my lot. It's blue, it's got tan interior, and I'm going to have one sitting right next to it that's the same model year, same trim package, same color, same everything. Are they the same car? Technically, they're the same car, but used cars are like snowflakes. Each one's different. The one on the left has 6,000 miles per model year because the person didn't drive it. The one on the right has 25,000 miles per model year. Should I price those the same? No, they're not the same car. The 25,000 model or 25,000 miles a year model, that better be priced to move, right? But that 6,000, that's a unicorn. That's what we hope for. You should be making gross on that. you should be asking for a premium on that car. Why? Because it's something special. There's not a lot of them out there, and people are willing to pay that premium. You got to make sure that you're looking at the market and looking at, how does your car compare with packages and equipment to what you're comparing to. Once again, find out where you're at in the marketplace after you determine what you have, and then use those pricing proof points. So in this scenario, wouldn't it be great to know when I price the vehicle, when it goes online, how it compares to the books? That's how consumers are shopping. That's how they're judging you. So why don't we look at that up front so we know when we hit send and our provider sends that out to the internet, we're putting our best foot forward. So let's shift gears now. So we bought the car, we priced the car, we sent it online, we sent it to AutoTrader, we sent it to Cars.com, we sent it to our website, we sent it to 20 other websites that are out there. We're paying all this money in SEO and SEM and paid search and all sorts of. I have dealers that are spending a ton of money on digital, which is good. So they spend all this money to find my mom or my sister that's in the market for that Honda Accord EXL, right? So they get excited about the car, they come to the dealership, and that's where the process breaks down. So we're going to talk about how you market it right, and then how you sell it right, but how those two things can't be separated, how they need to be transparent across all levels. So let's first talk about merchandising. Your ad description is important. It's the first time that you have the ability to interact with your customer. It's the first time that your customer is learning about you, learning about the car, and learning about the dealership, your price, whether or not they feel like they can trust you. So we need to put our best foot forward. We'll talk about that in greater detail in just a minute. And then selling right. We got to sell all that information when the customer shows back up. So let's talk about all these different platforms that we need to do this on. So obviously, you have your third-party sites, you have your dealer websites, you have a BDC center, you have a customer comes on the lot, customer is in the showroom. Let's talk about first online. So when we don't have face-to-face interaction with the customer, when they're looking at us on AutoTrader or Cars.com or our own website. So customers have questions. What we need to do is answer those questions. So customers out there, they have these questions. Our ad description should answer those. First, is this the right car for me? Does it fit my need? Does it fit my objective? I have 2 kids. I live in Chicago, so I need something with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. Like I said, I have 3 kids that are into sports, so there's always a baseball bag or a soccer bag or a basketball bag or something. So I need something with a lot of space in the back. I probably might need a third row because they fight a lot, they're boys, and I might need to separate them. So I put one in the back, I put one in the middle, and the wife and I are up front. So now, is this the right car for me? It's kind of answering my questions. We're purchasing a used vehicle. So, am I buying a lemon? Am I buying somebody else's problem? You got to answer those questions to make the customer feel secure about that. Is it the right price? It's $37,000. I don't know if that's the right price. If you know it is, and you know that it's $2,000 below Kelley Blue Book, you know that it's $1,500 below NADA, put that in your ad description. Put that there so your first interaction with your customer, they're seeing that, and they know that you're being transparent and you're not playing games. Why is this car better than all the others I've seen? So what are third parties saying about this vehicle? What are expert reviews, Edmunds, J.D. Power, what are they saying about this car? Go find that research and put it into your ad description. And then secondly, if we attract the customer from AutoTrader or Cars, we ultimately want them to come to our website. Why do we want them on our website over a third party? Nothing against the third parties, but the next car on the third party site is my competition. The next car on my own website, that's my car. So I'm competing against myself, right? So not only does your ad description on the third party sites need to be spot on, but then on your website too. So make sure you have a provider that distributes it across all platforms. So let's dive into an ad description right now. So you can see here, it's Mercedes-Benz, the highlights behind it, the key features, so it's got nav, sunroof, turbocharged, the option packages on this car, all the things that it comes with, why it's an excellent value, why they should shop with confidence, talking about the warranty, and then why buy from you? Why buy from your dealership? And then adding that as a value tool to your website. So taking all that information and putting it into an easy-to-read format. There's a lot of different providers out there that do this, so I encourage you to go shop them. So we just talked to that customer online. Now the customer shows up to our website, and they're informed with all this information. So let's talk about that. So either on the showroom floor or the BDC center. You have to build trust with the 91% of people that don't trust us, according to Gallup. So how do we do that? You got to open them up. You got to be transparent. You got to build quality. You got to build value in every single car. Remember, the car on your lot is the star. It's not you. It's not your dealership. It's not your salesperson. The car is the star, okay? So you got to make the car the star. So a couple ways that you can do that. Give your salespeople technology to make the car the star. So in this particular situation, I can easily scroll through. If I can read, I can build value. If I can read, I can build value. So I read what's on this car. I could be 1 day in the industry or 30 years in the industry. I may not know anything about BMW 5 Series, but if I can read, I can build value. So I talk about this, and then when I show them that additional information, I can build value in that car, right? So I can talk about how they search, the year, make, model, price, color, and mileage. Then I get them excited with the option packages. Not only do I get them excited about the premium package and the navigation and the BMW Assist, but also I can show them how much additional value they're getting by buying this car over one of my competitors' cars. So in this particular case, it's almost $7,000 in additional packages that were on this car. I'm getting excited because I didn't know that, right? So I feel like I'm getting pennies on the dollar for these packages. So show them the third-party sites, JD Power, crash test ratings, and how far they can go on a gallon of gas. I don't know what 5 stars mean, but I know it's a lot better than 4. So talk to them about it, right? How many times does the customer ask for a Carfax? All the time. Show it to them up front. Don't wait for them to ask. They've probably already looked at it. So if you're trying to hide something, they probably already know, and then you're getting knocked down and wrong anyways. Now, certification. Certification is very important. If you're going to certify your cars, you've got to sell the value of the certification. I travel the country doing workshops all over the place, and I'll be in a room full of salespeople. Who's the best salesperson in here? They all raise their hand, hopefully, right? And let's say I'm at a Chevy store. What does it mean to be GM certified? What does it mean to be Ford certified? What does it mean to be whatever OEM I'm at? I always get the same couple answers. I get, it's peace of mind. Okay, well, what does that mean? And they'll throw out a couple things, but never does anybody just rattle off all the 10 different things that it means to be certified. Show it. And you got to remember, the customer doesn't trust us anyways. So if I'm telling you something versus telling and showing, show and tell, that's why they call it that, read it to them. Show it to them. Show it to them and build value in your car. Now, if you notice, we didn't even talk about price yet. We talked about the value in the vehicle. Now, use those pricing proof points to drive that value home. This car is below NADA. It's below the market. It's below the original MSRP by X amount of dollars. And then share this information with the customer. Send it to them so they have it on their mobile. So when they go to showroom you, they're looking at your information, not the information they find on Google. Now, on the lot, you got to provide that salesperson with the same data and the same information to make informed decisions. So put that same information in the palm of their hands. So when a customer walks up and they don't go inside and we don't have an opportunity to slow them down, instead of pulling out an inventory sheet out of our back pocket and fumbling through to find the car they're interested in, those don't build values in cars. What does that talk about? The inventory sheet that we all have in our back pocket talks about price. And what percentage of customers buy strictly on price? 20%. So let's get value. Let's start selling on value, not on price. So using a mobile technology piece to do that as well, what we've seen has really helped dealers hold that gross. Why are we doing all this? Because customers are changing. There's more information readily available to them. They know this information when they're coming in, and they're still shopping us when they come in. So give them the information on their phone to be able to do that, so they don't go off to Google and shop you themselves. So what does change look like? Well, I encourage you, if you have a CarMax store of the future, in one of your markets, just go online and research it and see if you're in a market where they have it. Go in and mystery shop them. Go in and look around. See how they're doing this. Everything's done on big touch screens, and they're literally selling the inventory over a touchscreen TV before they even go out to the lot. Go in and check them out. It's a pretty neat process. There's other OEMs such as BMW. If there's any BMW stores out there, we work great with BMW. Have had a partnership with them for years. They have the Genius concept. So they're actually hiring people to come in and not be salespeople, be product experts, right? Show them the value in the car. Show them all the cool technology that they're getting. Lexus is going to a one price approach. So you got to sell value if you're going to be a one price store. So that's what change looks like. So what's the cost of not changing? So we talked about that drop. We talked about the vehicle that we have online, what it's priced at, and then what we end up negotiating. So if you're negotiating $1,000 a car or $1,500 a car, we talked about in the very beginning, our grosses are way under pressure. Extremely under pressure right now. They're getting pushed really hard. We don't have the room anymore in our deals to negotiate. Not in thousands. We might have a couple $100s to negotiate, but not thousands of dollars. So we need to start using evidence-based selling, building quality and value in that vehicle to stop that drop, to cut that drop in half. If we can cut it in half to start, and then we can move from there and start getting it into the like $100, $200, $300, you're going to see your gross profits skyrocket. So we all track volume, gross. The one thing that we don't track is drop. So we all look at our volume month over month, year over year. We look at our gross. When we see our gross, that's our negotiated sales price to what we own it for. So the missing piece, though, that drop that you need to start looking at is our market-based price, the price that we put into our pricing tool, minus our gross. That's our potential gross. That's what we might be able to make on this car. It's the market-based price minus what we actually sold it for. That's the drop. So in this scenario, we may have had it online for $24,000, and we own it for $20,000, right? Well, now we negotiated that car down to $22,000, so we just cut our gross profits in half. So we need to stop doing that. So you need to start monitoring your drop month over month to see if you're getting better, but also manage your salespeople. Look at your salespeople's numbers. In this particular situation, last month Kirk sold 15 units, and he only negotiated on average $230. Versus Jimmy, he sold the least and he had the highest drop, right? So what is Kurt doing better than Jimmy? Get the sales team working together and learn from your best salespeople on what they're doing. So when you get back to your dealerships, or if you're at your dealership right now watching this, make sure you examine how we acquire vehicles, how we price our vehicles, how we merchandise our vehicles, and ultimately how we sell our vehicles. It's all about stopping that drop. It's all about cutting that drop in half. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me today. I appreciate there's a lot of workshops out there that you had a choice to go to, and I really appreciate you picking mine and picking to learn more about this topic. This is a topic that is definitely resonating out in the marketplace, so I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.